or probably have a graveyard in your house. Not a literal one, but something close. Maybe it's a dusty guitar sitting in the corner, strings untouched for months. Maybe it's a stack of language books you bought with excitement and ambition, now half yellowed, barely opened. Or maybe it's a half-finished coding project buried somewhere on your laptop, a silent reminder of a version of you that once believed this time would be different. And every time your eyes land on those things, you feel it. A small, sharp twinge of guilt, not loud enough to force change, but strong enough to quietly drain your confidence. Society has many names for this pattern. They call it flaky. They call it lacking grit. And the most famous label of all, jack of all trades, master of none. The story they tell is simple and brutal. You start with intense passion. You binge information. You watch videos, read articles, buy tools. You feel alive, focused, certain. You tell yourself, this is it. This is the thing I'll finally stick to. And then something strange happens, right when it stops being exciting, right when the progress slows, right when it demands patience instead of curiosity. The feeling evaporates. You get bored, you hesitate, you quit, and you move on to the next shiny idea. At first, you don't worry about it. You tell yourself you're exploring. You tell yourself you're multi-talented. But after years of this cycle, something darker sets in. Self-blame. You look at your history and ask yourself questions you don't say out loud. Why can't I stick to anything? Why do I always give up? What's wrong with me? And slowly, quietly, a dangerous belief forms. Maybe I'm just not built for mastery. Today I want to challenge that belief, not with motivational slogans, not with shame, but with science. Because what if being a dabbler isn't a defect at all? What if it's unfinished potential? Sam wrote, here's the part almost nobody tells you. The psychological foundation of a chronic dabbler is the same foundation found in polymaths and geniuses. You possess something cognitive scientists call the knowledge instinct. This is the brain's drive to reduce uncertainty, to explore, to learn, to understand new systems quickly. You have a high sensitivity to novelty, a strong pull toward curiosity, a hunger for new patterns. That's not weakness. That's raw intellectual energy. The difference between you and someone who reaches mastery isn't personality. It's not intelligence. It's not discipline. It's not talent. It's strategy. More specifically, it's the conditioning of a very specific mechanism in your brain. And to unlock that potential, we first need to understand the glitch that makes you quit too early. Novice. Let's talk about what actually happens inside your brain when you start something new. Cognitive scientists still refer to this drive as the knowledge instinct, but your brain experiences it through something more visceral. It's called reward prediction error. Here's how it feels. You decide to learn something new, let's say photography. In the beginning, everything is novel. You don't know anything and suddenly you know something. You learn how the camera works. You understand exposure. You grasp basic composition. The learning curve is steep. Your progress is fast. Because the rate of information gain is massive, your brain releases dopamine in large amounts. It feels incredible. You feel focused, motivated, almost obsessed. This is the novice high. It feels like falling in love. The world feels full of possibility and you can vividly imagine a future version of yourself who has mastered this skill. But here's the trap. This phase is temporary. Eventually, something shifts. You understand the basics. You've mapped the surface. The easy wins are gone. The learning curve flattens. Progress slows down. Suddenly, there are no more quick dopamine hits. This is called the plateau. And for your specific brain type, this is where everything breaks. Because when novelty disappears, dopamine drops sharply. Not gradually, abruptly. It feels like the excitement was stolen from you. And in that moment, your brain draws a quiet conclusion. This isn't worth it anymore. This is the fork in the road. A master stays. They push forward looking for deeper patterns beneath the surface. But a dabbler leaves. And here's the critical misunderstanding. We often call this laziness. But laziness is a refusal to act. You're not refusing to act. You're refusing to act without fuel. Your brain is going through dopamine withdrawal. On a subconscious level, it calculates that the remaining effort, the final 20%, requires too much energy for too little reward. So you disengage. Not because you're weak, but because the system shut off the reward. THEBRUTLQST1. Now we need to pause for a moment of honesty. A real one. Are you quitting because you truly mastered the skill? Or are you quitting because it became uncomfortable? Because those are not the same thing. A true dabbler quits at the first obstacle. The moment confusion appears. The moment progress slows. The moment ego gets bruised. They don't consciously say, I'm afraid. Instead, fear disguises itself as logic. Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I picked the wrong thing. I should find something I enjoy more. And fear wins because something important is underdeveloped. A muscle in your brain that was never trained. THEYLPOWRMYTH. We talk about grit and willpower like they're personality traits, as if some people were born with them and others weren't. Neuroscience shows something very different. Tenacity is physical. It lives in a specific brain region called the anterior midcingulate cortex, the aMCC. Think of the aMCC as a muscle. This muscle activates only when you do something you do not want to do. If you enjoy the task, the aMCC sleeps. If the task is boring, frustrating, or uncomfortable and you do it anyway, the aMCC fires. If you let this muscle carry weight, it grows. If you avoid using it, it shrinks. And here's the problem. For most dabblers, this muscle is severely undertrained. Every time boredom appeared in the past, every time frustration surfaced, you quit, you put the weight down. So now, even a tiny inconvenience feels overwhelming. A difficult chapter, a confusing concept, a slow practice session, instant shutdown. This isn't a moral failure, it's mental muscle atrophy. Now here's the part most people never hear. That weakness you feel when things get boring. It isn't permanent. The anterior midcingulate cortex, the aMCC, is plastic, which means it can grow at any age. Neuroscientists studying something called superagers. Older adults who maintain exceptional memory, focus, and cognitive strength well into their 70s and 80s found something striking. Their aMCC is just as thick as that of young adults, sometimes thicker. Why? Not because they were born special, but because they spent a lifetime doing hard things after the excitement faded. They kept lifting the weight, which leads to an uncomfortable realization. Even if you're young, your willpower muscle might be weaker than that of a 70-year-old who lived a difficult, disciplined life. The question now becomes simple. How do we train it? SENDNGTHE AMCCTOTHEGYM. You don't fix muscle atrophy by punishing yourself. And you don't train discipline by forcing heroic effort. Just like a real gym, you need progressive overload. If you walk into a gym after years of inactivity and try to deadlift 500 pounds, you don't become strong. You get injured and quit. The same rule applies to your brain. This is where the 15% push rule comes in. When you're practicing your new skill and you feel that familiar urge to quit, that moment when the dopamine fades and frustration creeps in, do not quit immediately. But also do not force yourself to grind for another 4 hours. That's too much weight. Instead, push just 15% more. If you plan to read 10 pages and want to stop at page 3, read to page 4. Then stop. If you plan to practice for 20 minutes and want to quit at 10, do 12. That small gap, that tiny moment of doing what you didn't want to do, that is the rep. That is the moment your aMCC fires. Over time, these reps compound, the muscle thickens, and eventually what once felt unbearable becomes tolerable, then normal, then automatic. This is how a dabbler becomes a master, not through passion, through training boredom tolerance. ADHD, distis. Now we need to pause here because this matters. Some of you watching this have ADHD, and if that's you, the rules change. ADHD brains process dopamine and executive function differently. Trying to muscle through plateaus using willpower alone can actually backfire. It can lead to burnout, shame, and deeper avoidance. For the ADHD brain, internal grit is not enough. You need external scaffolding. That means task visualization, break projects into tiny, visible steps so progress is always concrete. Time visualization, use timers so tasks feel contained, not endless. Body doubling, work alongside someone else to borrow their focus. Gamification, add artificial rewards to replace missing dopamine. This isn't weakness. This is engineering your environment to match your brain. If you suspect ADHD, stop blaming yourself. Use tools. Support the aMCC. Don't punish it. Boredom. There's one more barrier that quietly sabotages you. Boredom intolerance. We live in a world of supernormal stimuli, short-form videos, endless feeds, sugar, games. These flood your brain with effortless dopamine. Compared to a 15-second video, learning a language or practicing an instrument feels painfully slow. Your brain is calibrated to high-intensity noise, so when you try to do the quiet work of mastery, it feels like suffocation. The solution isn't monk-like isolation, it's stimulus control when you practice it. Put your phone in another room. Turn off background music. Remove passive entertainment. Allow boredom to exist. This is critical. Because boredom is not a signal to quit. Boredom is the clean slate required for deep learning. It's the moment your brain shifts from consumption to creation. Lower the background noise of your life, and the signal of your skill becomes clear again. THE6 Moen TH. So here's my proposal. A reset. Pick one interest. Just one. It does not have to be your career. It does not have to make money. It just has to matter to you. Commit to it for 6 months. Not to become world-class, not to prove anything, but to experience the deliberate practice phase. Your real goal is this. Hit the plateau. Feel the dopamine drop. Feel the weakness in your aMCC. And then do the work anyway. Use the 15% push. Train the muscle. Find your baseline. Because once you prove to yourself that you can push through the dip even a little, your identity changes. You realize something profound. You were never broken. You were untrained. Dabbler was not a life sentence. It was a developmental phase. You are becoming a polymath in training. Mo hat komis next. Once that muscle is built, everything changes. You stop fearing boredom. You stop chasing novelty to escape discomfort. You stop abandoning yourself at the first sign of friction. And only then are you ready for the next level. In the next video, we'll talk about the polymath strategy, how to structure a career and a life that honors multiple interests without quitting. For now, download the free guide in the description. It includes the interest audit, the exact protocols to train your aMCC, a 6-month commitment framework. Pick your one thing. Lift the weight. I'll see you in the next